scheduled for you today with ColorTokens and Expedient, and we're going to tell you all about the partnership that we have going forward. Real quick though, couple housekeeping notes. If you have any questions, please enter those about here into the Q&A panel. That helps us keep track. You have a full opportunity to ask any questions you'd like to about our new microsegmentation platform to people who have the ability to answer really thoughtfully and deeply on those questions. Also, if you have a chance, please give us a follow on Twitter, twitter.com/expedient. Go to youtube.com/expedient, instagram.com/_expedient, linkedin.com/company/expedient. And you can take a look at all of the additional details on colortokens.com, who is our partner for this webinar. Also, if you haven't taken a look at expedient.com in a little bit, you may go to that website and see that next to data center, there's a plus number. We are very, very happy to announce that we've entered into 3 new markets, Milwaukee, Denver, and Phoenix. You can learn all about that on our website, and we have so much more to come around that. But today we're going to talk to 2 folks. The first is our VP of Strategy, Product Strategy and Innovation, Anthony Jackman. Hi, Anthony. How are you today?
Great.
And we also have with us Vats Srivatsanan, who is the President and COO of ColorTokens. And Vats, Anthony, actually, I'll let Vats, our guest, go first. Introduce yourself. Tell us what your roles and responsibilities are, and you know what company you're representing today.
First of all, AJ, thanks, and everyone, hi. I'm Vats Srivatsanan. I'm President and Chief Operating Officer of ColorTokens. We represent an innovative new approach to security that hopefully we'll get to talk about during the course of the day. Prior to ColorTokens, I was part of the executive team at Palo Alto Networks, and prior to that, I was one of the early members of the team that created Google Cloud and stayed on until it was a few $1 billion. Been serving large companies for a long time as a partner at McKinsey prior to that. So very happy to be here and talk about security with all of you today.
Thanks, Vats. And Anthony.
Hey, Vats, great to see you. My name is Anthony Jackman. As AJ said, I'm our VP of Strategy and Innovation at Expedient. And what that means is my team is really responsible for understanding what the market is doing, where is technology going, what new capabilities are available, what's the real value businesses can get from those capabilities. And then on the other side, my team works very closely with our client base to understand what they are asking us for, where their shortcomings are, what their needs are. And we marry the two and we kind of develop the Expedient roadmap of products and services. We also engage deeply with our clients to assess their current environments and to understand how we can map them to Expedient products and services and to ultimately create them a kind of cloud on-ramp.
And by the way, I'm very excited to talk about this because we've been talking about microsegmentation as part of our security strategy, security control, ransomware prevention and protection, but we can actually dive deeper into what microsegmentation is and how we're moving forward with the ColorTokens partnership. And this is driven a lot by what we've done so far with how to protect our customers and our clients from ransomware, how we can provide better and more innovative solutions and help customers get to a more secure posture faster. But Vats, I want to start with you. So you mentioned you've been with Palo Alto and Google and very large organizations. So where did ColorTokens kind of get started, and what was the problem that you were really looking to solve here?
Yeah, thanks. ColorTokens has been around for a few years and really focused on a branch of technology that you referred to on microsegmentation, more broadly, that follows a zero trust philosophy. Effectively, what we try to do is not protect, think of protection as not something that you would do in phases, but you would do holistically and look inside out from your data centers or from your applications. Traditionally, if you look at security, there was always an inside and an outside, and there was a perimeter, and you put firewalls in the perimeter. And that worked great for a while because that was fantastic level of protection that were there. But increasingly what's happened is with people moving on to cloud, part of your applications are sitting in your data center, other parts of the application sitting in the cloud. there's no inside and there's no outside, and threats from the inside are as potent as threats from the outside. And so what we are trying to do is protect, give people an additional level of security in that environment, so you can be protected at any time. And we believe that this pushes the envelope forward. It gives a chance for us to play this unfair game where companies have to be right 100% of the time, and an attacker just has to get through once. And we think that the traditional approaches kind of have a very complex way of doing it, and we think we have a simpler approach to help customers solve that problem.
So we've mentioned microsegmentation a few times, and you're talking about how you want to solve this problem, because there's that outside layer. I like to call it candy bar security, very hard outside, very soft in the middle. And so how does ColorTokens really define microsegmentation? Because it's been used by a number of vendors over the past, probably 5 to 7 years now. So how does ColorTokens really define that, and how does it actually deliver on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think microsegmentation has been around for a while. What does that really mean? I mean, I've seen a number of analogies. The one that struck with me, probably because I was a Star Trek fan for a long time, is the one of cloaking. Effectively, where you have a starship and you see it and then you don't. And if you don't see it, you can't attack it. Think of that as the analogy for what we try to do with applications. Effectively, what we do is protect applications at 3 levels. And one of them is microsegmentation. The 3 levels being, 1, who can see this application? Who can talk to this application? What can this application talk to? That's one area. The second level is what processes are allowed to run on this machine or VM or container that hosts that application. And the third is who can access it. And by controlling all of those, we create segments of security. Things that you trust can enter. Things you don't trust don't even see you. So that's basically our notion of where we come from at what microsegmentation. More broadly, microsegmentation refers to the concept of, it's been around. People thought of it as network segmentation. You put VLANs, you create things that are on one VLAN versus the other. We take it the next level because we can do this at an application level and start to protect specific applications like your crown jewels, from exfiltrating your key customer data or your employee data. And things that are more valuable, we can provide that additional level of security with the technology that we have.
So you also mentioned zero trust earlier, and this is getting a lot more view and a lot more credibility recently. Obviously, Google started with the Beyond Corp stuff. Was that almost 10 years ago at this point? And everybody kind of looked at that as like, yeah, that's not possible. Like, I don't think we'll ever get there. And now people are starting to see like, oh no, we actually have to invest the time to get there. So can you kind of define zero trust and break that down for our audience? And how does ColorTokens actually help customers get to that zero trust level of security?
Look, zero trust in some ways has been bandied about and has caught a lot of attention, and it become part of the hype, if you will, because everybody is talking about it. But there is a true concept of zero trust. Probably, my friend John Kinderwag at Forrester deserves a lot of credit for coming up with the term a long time ago. And he was then a colleague at Palo Alto Networks and part of our team. But zero trust at its essence means that a lot of the technologies here are built around being open for communication from anybody to anywhere. And the challenge with that model is then security in that model becomes very complex. Obviously, business becomes very easy to do because anything has access to everything. But that means the attacker potentially has access to everything as well. So you are in this conundrum of what happens. Zero trust gives a different paradigm. It's a paradigm shift that says that you start with a very different approach. You assume that you'll be attacked, which is, in this case, you're proving out with all these attacks that we see and hear in the papers every day. And so you assume that you're going to get attacked, and you say, how do I prevent an attack from happening in the first place? If I'm attacked, how do I reduce the damage that an attack can cause? And how do I do it around it? So zero trust takes the approach of don't trust anything unless you can be sure that you can trust. So don't allow anything unless at the extreme, unless you're sure that you can trust it. And what we do is give a platform and a tool that enables people to set the controls and the knobs, if you will, as to where they want to be in that journey. We can, because if you go, make everything air gapped, then nothing can talk to anything else, and that way business becomes very constrained. We do have those situations now in super security environments like federal government stuff, but that becomes a very constrained situation for enterprises. What we do is, instead of going complete air gap or complete open, we through zero trust say allow only trusted applications and interactions to happen and users to access it, and you can actually start to get to a good path in that journey by choosing the level of trust that you want to impose on that system.
It sounds very much like a pendulum, right? You're either all the way air gapped or you're all the way open, and you're kind of trying to settle on this, sort of space in the middle, which is really interesting. You mentioned earlier what is the problem that you were looking to solve was holistic, right? So when we talk about, a holistic view, how does this actually apply? Because when we think of microsegmentation, we think of very, network segmentation and mostly server level. So how does ColorTokens kind of expand beyond that? Because you mentioned that, how do we only allow certain users to get to certain applications? How do you expand beyond that?
No, I think the best way to answer that question is talk to you a bit about how customers are using our products, and those will be real use cases that people can resonate with. So, in oftentimes we see that people have certain crown jewel applications. So they basically say, I have some applications that are incredibly valuable for me, and if breach can be incredibly damaging to my company, in some cases, those damaging to the society, as we learned in the ransomware attacks, where people can use it and bring down an entire supply chain. So for those, what we do is provide an additional level of protection. So we basically look at those crown jewels and we say, look, let's set the right level of trust for that crown jewel. So who can access those crown jewels? A first level starts with visibility, because oftentimes what happens is people don't know all the interactions that are happening. We've had situations where a client kind of had an ACI system in place. They had rules in that. They had configured things. We put our sensors in, and within minutes, we saw some traffic to a foreign country that they didn't expect. In fact, they had specifically set rules on. Why did that happen? Because the rules are misconfigured, because it was so complex to put in the first place, and there are so many places you have to look for. And so right away, so it starts with visibility into what is happening with that application. Then it starts with what policy do you want? You can turn the knob all the way to zero trust and say, look, I'm only going to allow a few things to do. I'm going to allow upgrades to happen. I'm going to allow specific processes that needs communication for the application. I want it to write to the database. I'm going to allow these kind of accesses, users to access it, and that's it. Or roles of these kind of roles to access the application. Or you can say, look, I will go the other way, and I can look at all the things that are going on. Let me just scale back the things that I know for sure that I don't trust. And so we allow the companies to choose what that knob is. So that's one use case that we see, and we see that very commonly. The other use case we see is, for example, if you have remote users that are logging in through a VPN. Through a VPN, you basically, once you're in and you have access to everything. So what we try to do is be more selective and targeted and say, look, you can apply it into specific things. Another thing we are seeing, interestingly, is legacy systems, where the process control becomes important. You don't want legacy systems to be or point of sale devices or things to be doing things that they don't want to do. We have a retailer that basically has us in 1,000 stores. The point of sale is only supposed to do what the point of sale system is supposed to do. So we don't allow any other processes, ransomware otherwise, to run the point of sale systems. And that enables us to protect them in a much more holistic fashion than they would be able to do with traditional systems. We don't solve all problems in security, but we try to get you to zero trust in specific parts of the business by taking a different approach. And people think of it as additional layers of security sometimes on crown jewels, because they have very good tools available today, but they think of it as I need additional. Or in other cases, they think of it as a brand new approach to start on their zero trust journey by taking one group and studying.
So this technology sounds fantastic. Anthony, when we look at this, we've been focusing a lot on multi-cloud this year. So what's happening in multi-cloud that's actually exacerbating these challenges that bots has been telling us about here?
So you just heard a little bit about it from bots, and the key word is complexity. And then you heard the other half of it in your question itself, which is multi-cloud. And we know in talking to our clients that almost all of them are multi-cloud, even if they don't know it. What's that mean? They're on their premise. They might have two sites. They may have disparate hardware. They're in a hyperscaler. They may be in an enterprise cloud like Expedient. And what that means is a different way of doing each function in each location, which rapidly stacks up complexity, which means you get stuck and you never reach the end goal that you're really looking for. So multi-cloud has taken an already difficult problem in security and made it more challenging if you don't have the right tools at your disposal. Another thing is that we're seeing technology is really driving business growth for clients. And what that means is they are investing faster in their technology. They're changing faster, and change equals risk if you don't have the appropriate controls around it, which you can do with innovative solutions like this. And maybe the last thing I'd say that's contributing to current pain points is COVID and the whole work from home, remote workers. For some companies, it wasn't a big deal because they were already geared up for it. For other companies where everyone was internal, you now have potentially thousands of endpoints in locations you don't know, on devices you can't control. So you have to have a better way of securing your workload from those users, whether it be things they're doing intentionally or things that they've been compromised and they could potentially impact your systems.
And then when we were looking at these sorts of tools, and as our VP of Product Strategy and Innovation, it's kind of your job to help us figure out where our overall set of tools and what that actually looks like and what we're trying to solve. So how does ColorTokens actually fit into our overall tool set? So
at Expedient, we think that clients need to have a defense in-depth approach. What that means is that one solution is never going to be enough. You have to protect against the entire attack chain. And then when the entire attack chain, all your guards fail, you have to be prepared with backups, with disaster recovery. ColorTokens strategically fits multiple areas of that need for capabilities. One of the first ones I'd call out, you already talked about, is expanding our methods of access control. Obviously, we encourage our clients to use strong two-factor authentication, to only use named accounts everywhere, and to be very selective about who they grant access to. But that's from an application perspective, meaning if you only employ that model, everybody can hit it from the network. And because that user's endpoint could be compromised, we need to lock that down further and really ensure that only intended users are accessing those resources. Also, Expedient's approach, the user's logged into a device, we want that user to be there, they're authorized to be there. They reach out to some potentially malicious link. Let's sinkhole it. We have a solution for that. Let's assume that fails. We have a solution to execute potential malware in a sandbox and say, hey, we think this is bad. Don't even let it get to the endpoint. But history has told us that both of those things will fail. And when an endpoint or a server becomes compromised, ColorTokens is the best way to prevent that infection from spreading to other areas of your network, which means you're really minimizing your risk, you're minimizing your blast radius, you're making it much easier to remediate the situation and to get back up and running. And then the last piece where we really see a strong fit here is ColorTokens also provides us the ability to do threat management at scale. Everybody understands threat management. There's tons of products that do it. Not too many of them work very well at scale in a manageable and easy to use fashion. And we think ColorTokens really does provide that capability.
And beyond just the fitting into the security tools and the access control, how does this actually help clients protect their data, right? Because when we're talking about this, we're talking about limiting the blast radius and so on and so forth. How does this actually help with protecting the data, especially with the proliferation of ransomware?
So, I think the first thing to point out here is that it's making it possible to segment your environment. As you guys talked about earlier, microsegs existed for a long time. The concept is out there. There's many ways of doing it. There are not many ways of doing it well. There's not many ways of doing it at scale, and there are not many ways of doing it in a manageable way that's not going to break your organization, that's going to introduce unintended rule sets, as Vats described. So that's kind of step one. We're going to validate that only intended communications happen, which means infections are much less likely to spread, but also data is much less likely to leak out to a place where it's not intended. All the focus in the industry is on ransomware because that's what the biggest attacks have been. But those people that are executing ransomware attacks are increasingly also trying to exfiltrate that data so that even if you recover your systems have been ransomware, right? They've been crypto locked. Hey, I have backup in DR, I'm back up and running, attacker, too bad for you. If they have your data, they also exfiltrated it, they have another way of extorting money out of you. And as Vats described with, hey, this server needs to talk to the internet because it has to grab updates. It has to talk to some partner on the other side of the world that we don't have a direct connected network with. But let's make sure that it's only reaching out to services that we intended to reach out to. That's going to prevent data from being exfiltrated, which is just another layer of protection.
And we've seen this happen with Apple. Actually, it wasn't directly on Apple; it was on a supply chain of Apple. I think it was Foxconn that got a ransomware attack, and the ransomware attack, they got everything back up and running, but the ransomware attackers said, hey, we also got all the data. Does everybody want to know what the new iMac and MacBook Pro are going to look like? And they were like, hey, Apple, pay us money. We won't send anybody. And Apple's like, no, we don't negotiate like that. And so they released everything. And sure enough, here comes the new MacBook Pros that look exactly like what were in the schematics. So this is the sort of intellectual property and data breach. And I think that's the one that is, I think, as Anthony, you just mentioned, it's getting lost because everybody's worried about like, okay, my operations are shut down. I need to get them back up and running, and not on, hey, did they get the data too? Right? Especially in organizations, healthcare organizations, financial organizations that have PHI, PII, or financial records, those sorts of things that could be very lucrative if someone were to have them. Those are the sorts of things that I think ColorTokens actually does a great job of also protecting against. So I'm going to bring this back to Vats. So how does this partnership actually accelerate a customer getting their security posture to where they really want to be?
No, I think first of all, let me start by saying it's been such a wonderful team to work with. So it's part of the partnership is the team, and I think the two teams have been fantastic. We are very excited with the journey for a couple of reasons. One is we see Expedient as a good growing company, and we believe that your customers through our technology will be able to give themselves a much better protection of their more critical assets, of their data that is compliant related, PII, PCI that you mentioned, as well as in general get a better sense of where they are in terms of their security posture. Just the pure visibility of what is happening around their most critical applications will quite help. The other reason we are excited is the way Expedient taking this to market, where we are part of an integrated suite that is being delivered to Expedient's customer, is very exciting for us. It makes it seamless for the customers. And what our mission has been, as Anthony said up front, to make microsegmentation not this complex thing that people don't need more complexity. Our mission is to make it very easy for the end customer to apply this at scale. And through Expedient, we have a way of reaching it where the solution is delivered at scale very seamlessly. So we really love that partnership from that aspect. We have a huge amount of expectations from it. And I can tell you just from talking to the team that's been working with Expedient, each and every member has been incredibly excited about just the way that we've worked together all the way from when we started this a few months ago.
And Anthony, how are we seeing this from the Expedient side?
I think I'll start by just echoing Vats's comments about how great the partnership has been. Working with Vats directly, other members of his executive team, we've worked directly with their developers. Expedient's nature is that we partner deeply with our vendors. We really understand the software, and because of the breadth of our client base, we can rapidly gather feedback about, hey, this product's great, but what if it could do this too? We've already taken those things to ColorTokens, and we've seen enhancements show up. And that really describes kind of the strength of the partnership, is that can happen. Additionally, we talked about how part of the value of the product is just that it can accelerate a client from zero to fully segmented. very quickly, but it still is something you need to learn. It may be very simple, but it's something you need to learn. When you come to Expedient, it's delivered to you as a service, meaning nothing to learn, one vendor to talk to, and we can additionally round out your entire security stack because, like we've discussed, a few times now, one product or one service is not necessarily enough in the security space. It really requires defense in depth, and we can offer, the north-south firewall out in front to land VPN tunnels and everything else to connect sites that's still required. We can provide endpoint security so that if malicious code finds its way in, let's prevent it from ever executing. ColorTokens is going to fill that void of stopping it to spread. But when all else goes wrong, and even if it's just one server that's been compromised, robust backup and DR solutions to get you back up and running as soon as possible. And again, this is all delivered as a service, which means you don't have to add additional skill sets to your team in order to expand your capabilities to meet your business needs.
So I have an audience question. Let's go with this. Does ColorTokens include monitoring and alerting? And maybe Vats and Anthony, this is, kind of a step into, kind of what you're actually seeing from inside the platform itself and how it would actually work.
Yeah, let me take a first shot at it, and Anthony, feel free to jump in. Overall, we have a product and we have a service. So let me kind of differentiate the two. I think the technology that we work with is largely focused on the product that gets integrated into what Expedient delivers, so that becomes seamless for the customers to add us. On the product side, we do monitoring. In other words, people can monitor what transactions are happening at any point in time. But instead of alerting, we take an approach of blocking right away things that you don't trust. So we don't alert, we kind of block. In fact, some customers find it very valuable. I have a very large medical, large customer in the medical industry that basically one of the largest hospital chains in the United States, actually, they want the ability to block something that they see instantaneously. They don't want to wait for the alerts. They don't want to wait for the analysis. Something that is going on, they want to block it. We give the ability to do that. So that, that part of it. In the service side of it, we do offer this as a service. And on the service, it's typically, we do look for alerts. We set the alerts, we monitor them. If there is any threat hunting, the point that Anthony was making earlier, if we see some threats, we automatically block them, or we provide the alerts that the customer can do it. But we do both. But in our main product, we give you the ability to block and versus alert and analyze later, right away.
And there's another question here around the reporting aspects of ColorTokens and how that's different from firewalls. And I think where that really plays into is the level at which these two things are operating. Correct. Right? Top level. So can you kind of walk through, the reporting that's available from firewalls and how that kind of differs from what you're actually getting from ColorTokens and the levels at which those are operating?
No, absolutely. Having spent some time with the firewall company that I think is fantastic, and it's also a partner of Expedient at Palo Alto Networks, firewalls provide a lot of detailed reporting down at the level of the network level transactions. We operate at a slightly different level. We allow the CISOs and the CIOs to actually, protect critical applications. So our monitoring is more of what is the context of the application? What is the risk and vulnerability that is embedded in either the application itself or if the transactions are coming into the applications? And based on that, should we allow or block the specific transaction, in real time as we look at those? So we allow an ability to do it. Our reporting tends to be more of the level of interactions that are going on, what is allowed and what's not allowed. And if we have policies enforced, what level of policies are there? Obviously, we use ML to continually refine those policies and say, if there is a new threat that has emerged that wasn't there before, because there's something that changed with the risk profile of a particular interaction. I used to be trusted, but I'm accessing the application from an unknown place. That changes the risk profile, and then you need to decide upfront whether you allow it or not. Those kind of things we report and actually allow the user to select what they want to do. But broadly, I would say our reporting is at a broad level. It starts to get to the posture and the level of control that you have on specific applications. And of course, we can monitor even if our sensors are in some application, not the other, we can monitor every transaction that comes in. And so that generally people find it very valuable to say what is going on with that application.
I think one of the interesting parts in going through and working with the ColorTokens team and that we've seen is the visibility. And I think one of the key things that Anthony kind of picked up on earlier was when you have microsegmentation in the past, it was very much, this is how you can segment your network, but it was never what to segment. Right? It was always just that this gets you from, I can take this stuff and block it from talking to this stuff, which is great. But do I know that I should be able to block this, or does this stuff actually need to talk to one another? So can you kind of talk through that process? Because you guys talk about how you can get from 0 to fully protected in 90 days. So how do you actually make that happen?
I think visibility, as you said, is something that people really value. Probably I can't overstate the value of visibility that people get when they first see the product in action. They go, wow, because it lights up and there is interactions that you don't see. In terms of how do you make the choice, of what to block and what not to block, which is gist of your question. We do it in a couple of ways. We obviously have application-specific templates, so we learn from that in terms of what specifically should work with a CRM application, what is not. So that's a starting point we have. We can operate in one of two modes. We can operate in an observe and learn mode, which is the ML traditional route of we observe interactions, we see what's going on, and then we basically create a baseline of what is needed for that application to run over a period of time, a few weeks, and then start to get to what should be blocked or not. We can apply industry-specific templates, and we have horizontal templates in developing vertical templates for specific industries. They'll say for these kind of applications, if you're an Epic and healthcare, if you are SAP or Oracle in this piece, then you have these kind of typical applications. These are the interactions that happen. So we're working towards those things, but we also learn from the piece. So we use this, and customers choose whether to block up front and then allow a few based on the learning, or do they allow everything and block as they go along and get to a zero trust posture. And that really varies by company, and you see a whole spectrum because depending on the criticality of the business. Hopefully that answered your question.
And it did. And I think that's that key to actually go through and actually figure out what needs to be blocked, or what is actually out there, I think is the key part. Because most people could say like, yeah, I could block all of my desktops from talking to one another. That's great. But how do I make my applications not talk to one another? How do I know that they're not talking to one another? And that visibility is key there. Another question here, is Expedient using this at a data center level? If so, how do your clients benefit, or is this a new service offering? This is a new service offering. This is part of our security control suite of tools. You can go to expedient.com/services/security to see more and read more about this. So clients benefit by getting access to this as a service and bundling this with other security tools like endpoint security and multi-cloud firewall to be able to provide multiple levels of protection up front. We are working on bringing this into more of our fold internally on our internal systems, because we want to protect ourselves as well. So this is definitely something that we're using not just as a service for others, but we're also bringing in for ourselves. And Anthony, I think when we first took a look at this, we realized like, oh, this actually makes a ton of sense, even for our own internal systems.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few things I want to touch on because the conversations you guys were just having in terms of visibility, to kind of paint the picture of how important that is. Something Expedient regularly does for our clients is cloud migrations. And as I said, my team's responsible for helping clients with complex environments to understand what they have and paint them a cloud roadmap. And we literally interact with clients regularly that are frozen in a locked state and can't migrate because they don't understand their network and they're terrified of breaking it. So if you don't even understand your network enough to start moving to the cloud, or to buy a new environment, or to move, you certainly can't secure it. So visibility is absolutely key. The other thing I want to mention is that, as Expedient is offering this, It's a true multi-cloud service, which kind of mirrors what we're doing with all of our product sets, which means you can consume this service in the same way from one pane of glass for all your workloads everywhere, and they do not have to be at Expedient. You don't even have to have a single workload at Expedient to take advantage of this.
And that's definitely been a big push of ours over the last calendar year, really, is enabling services that go outside of our four walls, because we recognize the customers need help. We have solutions for them. And by being able to make this a way to go further and a way to be able to maintain your applications no matter where they are, your workloads and users no matter where they are, is far more important than your workloads being in a specific data center. The enabling that mobility is key for us going forward. So I think that's a big shift. And Vats, can you kind of give us like a maybe a little preview of what ColorTokens is working on, if you feel so inclined?
Yeah, no, I can give you in broad generic terms, obviously, but very happy to do that. Look, I think that our utmost focus in microsegmentation, the point that Anthony talked about earlier, which resonates with every single customer I've talked to, which is this has to be a lot easier than it is right now for the customers to deploy, adopt, and implement at scale. So our major focus is we're continuing to make microsegmentation easy at scale, which means that we're investing a lot in our ability to identify assets automatically, tag them automatically, ability to write rules automatically or intuitively based on common language. Like if this is in this network talking to this, then do that kind of, it's as simple as that, like literally doing that. We are putting a lot of focus on machine learning and our ability to help not only identify assets, but group them in the right way. And then the question you asked earlier, what should be communicating to what, typically in what scenario? So we wouldn't take machine learning all the way. The human, eventually the company would have to have control on where they set it and what rules they accept and what they don't. We're trying to literally make it one click for the customer to say, apply this, and then we are off and running. The third part is we want to simplify the tools. We want to continue to make the interface very easy and intuitive, the reporting very intuitive, and pieces like that. That's one dimension of what we're doing. Clearly, we're investing in access and the ability to add not just machine to machine, application to application, but also the ability to have user access tied into it. And clearly, cloud is here to stay. I can say, from the ground floor up that it is here. And it's going to be hybrid for a long time, whether you like it or not, because people seldom migrate everything onto one cloud. So we've architected it in a way that we not only can take care of today, like private clouds, like the one that Anthony talked about, or your own data center, or mixture, but also future cloud technologies, so that it works with cloud native technologies, containers, serverless, microservices. And we can actually do additional levels of control when things are on the cloud by architecting our product in a particular way, making sure they can control specific APIs. So we are working on all of those range of things, but broadly what we want to do is make it very easy for customers to adopt and consume our product.
And we do appreciate that, because I know that a lot of times people get very nervous about doing the actual implementation. They get nervous about the actual, like, okay, I have this platform now, how do I actually make it work day one, right? It takes a very long time for most platforms or pieces of software to come in. I like to call this the day 100 problem. It takes that first 100 days just to get it up and running and figure out that you broke it once and you got to redeploy it. And then you put it back up and running and get it to where you want it to be. You're skipping from day 100 back to day one with the service that starts immediately pulling in all that network data. And I think that could be really, really powerful. You guys just also mentioned or just launched Xaxis. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. The Xaxis is our product offering that allows a lot of the microsegmentation deals with application to application or machine to machine type interactions. And that's clearly one that we've been working on a while. Xaxis, as we recently launched, allows us to tie in user groups to specific applications. So not only does it provide intelligent access, much more sophisticated than VPN, based on roles or based on authorization that the access have, that the users might have. But it also allows people, for example, in remote sites to connect to specific applications, third-party third-party suppliers or testers that are commonly testing on your labs. We allow them access to that specific application for a period of time. That's what is needed. And so, access puts a different dimension of security. The beauty of this is these have been viewed as separate problems and people are solving it very well separately. But then it comes to the customer, then have to integrate and see what happens. We allow, for example, access to be tied into the microsegments. So you can define specific segments of applications that need to talk to each other, and then specific users that can communicate with the applications and what the nature of the communication can be. So we are excited about it. It's a long journey because access has different dimensions, but we are starting to get to add that dimension into the complete security control that we offer.
And I think that's the sort of thing that you can do once you start to have this level of visibility, this level of protection already. You add that on top, and you can now go in as you mentioned earlier, a holistic sort of view around where all of your things are. I was actually just trying to pull up our demo environment to maybe give everybody a little tour, but I'm having a little struggle getting in there right now. That's okay. I don't remember my password. It's not a problem with ColorTokens. It's a problem of my memory and not using a password manager properly. So this has been an absolutely awesome conversation. Vats, where can everybody reach you and learn more about ColorTokens?
The best place to reach us is the website. So go to ColorTokens.com and you'll get information about us. We are very excited. As I said, Anthony, it's been a real pleasure working with Anthony and his team. And we believe that that if you are using Expedient or considering using Expedient, you will find ColorTokens very intuitive and easy to adopt and deploy at scale. So I would say if you're considering ColorTokens, try it out now. If you're considering Expedient, try it out now, because this is not very difficult and you will get a lot of value right away. You will see from just the visibility they provide, even if you decide to enforce later, the policies later, although we made that easy as well. So I think the best way to reach us is through the website, and obviously, we are available at any time, and we're very happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Vats. Anthony, how can the people reach you about our platform and how our partnership and how they can take advantage of this as Expedient clients or even as prospects?
So first off, anyone that wants a technical deep dive or wants to learn a little bit more about how this fits into Expedient's overall service offering, feel free to contact me directly. Feel free to contact AJ. Also, as Vats said, our website is great, our Twitter and LinkedIn, and AJ can give you a lot of specifics on all of the social channels as he's very plugged into all of those.
It's weird. Social media became a life. You can go to expedient.com/services/security to learn way more about our micro-segmentation and the rest of our security tool set. You can also click that link that says Let's Talk at the top of the page to reach out and learn more about our products. Again, give us a follow on twitter.com/expedient, instagram.com/_expedient, youtube.com/expedient. And if you want to watch any of our other webinars, our entire ransomware series, the time that we helped recover a customer from ransomware in 48 hours, the time that we built an enterprise cloud that actually gives you a cloud operating model without the refactoring, all of those are available on go.expedient.com/webinar replays. Please keep an eye out for announcements about our next webinar. We are so happy that you joined us today, and we will see you next time. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks.